Elizabeth had been keeping files on him for more than 20 years. No, that was not exactly true. She had started a file more than 20 years ago, and then, after a few years, had sent it with a number of other files to be placed in long-term storage. She had called him unknown suspect for the first part of the file, when she was still only positing the existence of a single man who was causing so much disruption in the families. Her superiors had assured her that their long experience told them it was a real war, with the families attacking each other. He had been busy for at least a month before she got close enough to begin hearing informants talking about him and calling him the butcher's boy. It led up to the discovery of the body parts buried on the horse farm Carlo Balacontano, a.k.a. Carl Bala, owned at Saratoga. The discovery was prompted by a telephone tip to the FBI. Elizabeth had said right away to anyone who would listen that it was a setup. Why would a smart strategist like Carl Bala have his men bury the head and hands of Arthur Fieldston on his own property, 100 yards away from his summer house? Why would he have them cut the body up in the first place? Weren't there 1,000,000 pieces of empty land in upstate New York where nobody would find a body? Had the oceans dried up? Her superiors had said, he had them bury the head and hands there because it was a place he thought he could protect until he died. And she had said, somebody was capable of hiding the rest of the body, say 200 pounds of it, where nobody has ever found it. But the head and hands, the only means of identifying a murder victim, had to be right where he would walk past them every day. Carl Bala is not an idiot. He's ordered a lot of people murdered, but not this one. The person who buried the head and hands is the one who made the call to tell us where they were. Her protests had been futile. The murder charge against Carl Bala stood. Elizabeth had been ordered to take a vacation until the trial was over. She had flown to England and walked in gardens that had been cultivated for 700 years and watched plays nearly every night. When she had come home, Carl Bala had been sentenced to life in prison, and the butcher's boy was already gone, as though he had been made of smoke. Her job in those days had been to analyze police and coroner's reports, searching for deaths that had been declared suicides or accidents that weren't, or for homicides that formed familiar patterns or that seemed to benefit someone in organized crime. She was good at it, and she continued to scour the reports for years, but found no sign of him. He had stirred up the families with a few well-chosen murders, ones that would be almost certain to provoke retaliation against some rival group. Probably as soon as Carl Bala was arrested and denied bail as a flight risk, the butcher's boy disappeared. She kept the file she had been building in a lower drawer of her desk in the back. Each time she was promoted, she moved it to her new office, until she had moved from the computer rooms in the basement all the way up to the 4th floor 7 years later. Only then did she send it to the archives. 3 years after that, she was looking for it again. She had noticed the same kind of sudden rampage as before. This time it started with Tony Tallarese, dying in the kitchen of one of his restaurants. Tallarese had been wearing a wire for the FBI at the moment when he'd been killed. It was a macabre scene, as she pictured it while listening to the recording. His wife had been standing at the stove wearing a big pair of oven mitts when the shooter had struck. She had shrieked, rushing toward her fallen husband, flapping her arms like a bird to free her hands of the mitts. When she got to him, she hugged him, pulled up his shirt, and then screamed, "A wire! The son of a bitch is wearing a wire!" At the same time, she had spotted the out-of-proportion hysterical tears of 2 young hostesses and a waitress, and correctly guessed why they were so heartbroken at the death of her husband. At the moment when the FBI agents monitoring the wire burst in, she was shrieking, "Whores!" and chasing them with a kitchen knife. The killing moved outward and upward from Tallarese. Mafia captains died unexpected, violent deaths, and there were so many explanations for each death that there could be no explanation.